Have you ever wondered why schools, places of learning and growth, can also become the home to some of the most spine-chilling ghost stories? It seems almost contradictory. Where students fill the halls with laughter and classrooms buzz with the sounds of lessons and learning, you wouldn't expect to find anything out of the ordinary. But when the bell rings and the school falls silent, strange things start to happen. The laughter fades, and in its place, unsettling whispers echo through empty corridors. Shadowy figures seem to dart past out of the corner of your eye, and cold chills sweep through rooms without any warning. There's something inherently eerie about the emptiness of a school after hours, when the very spaces meant for educating young minds suddenly feel like they're hiding secrets of their own. Is it the history of these buildings, filled with decades of memories, some forgotten and some tragically remembered? Or perhaps it's the tales passed down from one class to the next, stories whispered in the dark that somehow seem to contain a grain of truth. In places where emotions run high, fear, joy, stress, and excitement, could it be possible that something more than just memories get left behind? Tonight, we're diving into 5 of the most haunting tales from school halls, each one more unsettling than the last. We'll hear stories of ghostly principals who refuse to leave their beloved schools, lockers that seem to have a life of their own, phantom footsteps that grow louder in the silence, haunted classrooms where tragic events have left their mark, and a weeping girl whose sorrow lingers long after her life ended in despair. These aren't just ghost stories. They're glimpses into the fears and emotions that resonate with all of us. Fear of the unknown, fear of what might be hiding in plain sight, and nostalgia for those school days that always seem to hold an air of mystery. So as we begin this journey into the world of haunted school tales, let me ask you, are you ready to uncover the secrets of these hallowed halls? These stories may just make you question the very nature of reality. Turn off the lights, settle in, and keep your ears open. You might hear something that makes you shiver. Are you brave enough to explore these chilling mysteries? Let's find out. Story 1: The Haunted Principal. Maplewood High was a school like many others, bustling with activity during the day, filled with the chatter of students, the ringing of bells, and the echoes of laughter bouncing off the walls. But when the sun set and the last student left the premises, the atmosphere would change. Silence took over, and a heavy, inexplicable feeling seemed to settle in the air. It was as if the school was alive, breathing with a quiet, ancient rhythm. And among the many stories whispered by students and staff alike, one tale stood out. The story of Principal Thompson, the principal who never really left. Principal George Thompson was known as a dedicated and compassionate leader during his time at Maplewood High. He had been the heart and soul of the school for over 20 years, wearing his signature tweed jacket and maintaining an open-door policy that welcomed any student with a problem or a need for guidance. He took pride in knowing each student's name, and his presence in the halls was a source of reassurance. There was a comforting reliability to seeing him stroll down the corridors, offering a kind word or a motivational pat on the back during exam season. His love for the school and its students was evident to all who crossed his path. But one fateful evening changed everything. It was just after the annual graduation ceremony, a time of celebration. As Principal Thompson was driving home, an accident occurred. His car veered off the road, and despite the best efforts of paramedics, he did not survive. The news of his passing hit the school hard, casting a dark shadow over what was supposed to be a joyous time. It felt as if the heart of Maplewood High had been ripped out, leaving an emptiness that couldn't be filled. In the weeks following his death, strange occurrences began to unfold. At first, it was small things. An office door found open when it had been locked, or a faint smell of tobacco smoke lingering in the halls. Even though Principal Thompson was known to occasionally smoke a pipe, it was a habit he had kept strictly out of sight during his tenure. Then, the sightings began. Several students reported seeing a figure wearing a tweed jacket walking the halls after dark. Some claimed they saw him pacing outside the gymnasium, where he used to give his famous pep talks before big games. The janitor, an old friend of Thompson's, once swore he heard the familiar sound of his voice behind him one evening, calling his name softly. but when he turned around, the corridor was empty. The most compelling stories came from the classrooms. During exam periods, when tension was at its peak, students would occasionally hear a calm, steady voice encouraging them to keep going, to not give up. Words of motivation that Principal Thompson had often used during his time at the school. "You've got this," the voice would say. "Don't let the pressure get to you." Many of these students had never met him, being new to the school after his passing, and yet they described the voice with uncanny accuracy. Teachers who worked late would sometimes hear footsteps echoing down the deserted corridors. They were sure it wasn't the sound of shoes tapping against the tile floor, but something softer, more deliberate. Some claimed to see the faint outline of a figure near the entrance to the principal's office, standing as if watching over the school. When they tried to approach, the figure would vanish as suddenly as it had appeared. The stories spread quickly among the students, and Principal Thompson's presence became an almost accepted fact. They began to say that he was still supervising the school, still caring for the students in his own spectral way. For some, his presence was reassuring, a reminder of his enduring commitment and the love he had for the school. It was said that his spirit was watching over them, ensuring the students' safety and success. Others found the encounters unnerving, as though the school itself was resisting letting him go, clinging to the memory of a man who had become more than just a principal. He had become a guardian of the place. There were even reports of old staff members who had once worked with him dreaming about conversations they used to have, only to wake up with a sense of closeness to the man who had shaped Maplewood High for so many years. The legend of Principal Thompson became one of the most well-known stories at the school, evolving into a tale passed down from class to class. For new students, hearing about the haunted principal was almost a rite of passage, adding an element of mystery to the already complex experience of high school life. And during stressful exam seasons, it became common for students to say, half-jokingly, that Principal Thompson would be watching over them, ensuring they did their best. But for those who had known him personally, these stories held deeper meaning. They believed that his presence was not just a figment of their imagination or the product of overactive teenage minds. To them, it was a testament to his dedication and an indication that, even in death, Principal Thompson continued to embody the same qualities that had defined his life. Unwavering commitment to his students and a love for his school that transcended the boundaries of mortality. Whether or not you believe in ghosts, one thing is certain: the memory of Principal Thompson lives on in the halls of Maplewood High. His legacy remains a part of the school's very fabric, stitched together with every whispered story, every shadow glimpsed at the end of a dark hallway, and every faint word of encouragement heard in the stillness of an empty classroom. His spirit, it seems, has never truly left. Story 2: The Mysterious Locker. At Crestview Middle School, stories of ghosts and haunted places circulated among students like secrets too tempting to keep. And among these tales, there was one that seemed to captivate everyone who heard it. The story of Locker 237. Located at the far end of the East Wing's hallway, the locker had gained a reputation that made even the bravest students avoid it. The rumor was that Locker 237 was haunted by the spirit of a girl named Emily, a student who had mysteriously disappeared years ago, never to be seen again. Emily was a quiet, kind-hearted girl who kept mostly to herself. She had been a promising student, often seen carrying books that seemed too heavy for her small frame. Her friends described her as gentle and bright, but also as someone who sometimes seemed to drift away into her own thoughts, as if she carried a burden that no one else could see. Then, one autumn day, Emily vanished without a trace. It was as if she had simply walked out of the school and never returned. Her disappearance baffled the town, sparking an investigation that lasted for months, but no clues were ever found. The only remnant of Emily left at Crestview was her locker, Locker 237, which remained untouched after her disappearance. Her personal belongings were eventually removed, but for some reason, the locker was never reassigned to another student. It stayed empty, its metallic surface slowly gathering dust, and its lock becoming rusted over the years. Over time, stories began to emerge about strange occurrences around the locker. Some said it had become a portal of sorts, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead was thin, where Emily's spirit still lingered. Students who walked past Locker 237 often spoke of a sudden, unexplained chill in the air. The hallway could be warm and bright, but as they approached that spot, an icy breeze would sweep through, as if a winter's wind had found its way inside. Some claimed that if you stood near the locker when the school was quiet, you could hear faint whispering sounds, though no one could ever make out the words. The whispers were said to echo through the halls like a forgotten memory trying to find its voice. The locker itself seemed to cast a shadow darker than any other along the hallway, even in the brightest light. It was as though the area around it absorbed the light, creating a gloom that spread across the floor like a dark stain. Occasionally, students passing by would notice that the lock appeared to have been tampered with, dangling loosely or left half open. Despite the school's efforts to keep it secure, the door would sometimes rattle without any visible cause, as if someone on the other side was desperately trying to open it from within. One of the most unsettling stories involved a student named Jake, who had dared to try and open the locker during a particularly dull lunch break. His friends watched from a distance, taunting him to turn the lock. As his fingers touched the cold metal, he swore he felt a pulse beneath his fingertips, as if the locker was somehow alive. When he finally pulled open the door, there was nothing inside except darkness that seemed unnaturally deep, as though it could swallow the world beyond it. From that moment on, Jake claimed he could hear Emily's whispers in his sleep, soft but persistent, calling for help. Teachers and staff dismissed the stories as childish fantasies, but even they couldn't deny the uneasy feeling that settled in the East Wing, especially late in the day when the sun dipped low and shadows grew long. A few faculty members who stayed after hours reported hearing footsteps echoing in the empty hallways, but whenever they went to investigate, they found nothing but silence. Some believed that Emily's spirit was still searching for something, or perhaps someone, to help her find her way home. The students soon began to create rituals around Locker 237, like leaving small notes or trinkets on the door in hopes of appeasing the restless spirit. Some left apologies, though they didn't know why, while others left flowers in remembrance of the girl they had never met. The notes would often disappear by the next morning, without any explanation as to who had taken them. It became a tradition for students to visit Locker 237 on the anniversary of Emily's disappearance, standing in silence for a moment before moving on. A silent acknowledgement of the girl whose absence had left an indelible mark on Crestview Middle School. As the years went by, the legend of Locker 237 grew. It became more than just a ghost story. It became a symbol of the mysteries that lurk just beneath the surface of everyday life. Emily's locker represented the secrets that people carry with them, the darkness that sometimes goes unseen, and the longing for answers that may never come. It was a reminder that there are some stories that never truly end, and some people who are never really gone. The haunting of Locker 237 wasn't just about a missing girl. It was about the lingering presence of a life interrupted, the way time seemed to pause around that one spot in the hallway. It was about the way people hold on to hope, even when there's no logical reason to do so. For those who believed, Emily's spirit was not there to harm, but to remind the living to pay attention to the things and people who are often overlooked. Even now, new generations of students come and go, each hearing the story for the first time. Their curiosity leading them to the East Wing, where they might feel the chill, hear the whispers, or see the shadow that lingers just a little too long. And as long as Crestview Middle stands, it seems, the mystery of Locker 237 will endure. A tale that continues to invite the brave and the foolish to seek out the truth behind the haunted locker's door. Story 3: The Phantom Footsteps. Westfield High School was known for its long, echoing hallways, where the clatter of students' feet filled the air during the hustle and bustle between classes. But there was one hallway, known simply as the East Wing Corridor, where footsteps could sometimes be heard even when no one was there. These footsteps, steady and rhythmic, seemed to echo from somewhere beyond, as though someone was walking just out of sight. The strangest part was that they always seemed to be approaching, moving closer and closer. Yet the hallway itself remained completely empty. The legend surrounding the phantom footsteps began many years ago with the tragic death of a student named Mark. Mark had been an athlete, one of the most promising track runners at Westfield. He was always the first to arrive and the last to leave, dedicated to improving his speed and stamina. But one late winter evening, after staying behind for extra practice, Mark had an accident in the gym that resulted in a fatal head injury. His untimely death cast a shadow over the school, and his absence left a void that many of his friends and teammates found hard to fill. Not long after Mark's death, reports of strange sounds began to circulate. Students who stayed late for after-school activities claimed to hear footsteps echoing through the East Wing corridor, which was near the gym where Mark had spent so much time. The footsteps were always heard at night, long after the building had emptied out. They would start softly, as if coming from a distance, then grow louder, as though someone was walking purposefully down the hallway. Yet, no matter how many times people tried to catch a glimpse of who or what was making the sound, they always found themselves staring into an empty corridor. The footsteps were said to stop abruptly right outside the old gym's doors, as if Mark was still trying to return to his favorite place one last time. Those who had dared to follow the sound spoke of an unsettling feeling that washed over them when they reached the gym entrance. A coldness that seemed to seep into the bones, a chill that had nothing to do with the weather outside. It was as if the very air grew heavy, weighed down by a sadness that lingered from years past. Teachers who stayed late grading papers or preparing for the next day also began to notice the odd occurrences. At first, they dismissed the stories as the overactive imaginations of teenagers. But as more staff members reported hearing the same sounds, footsteps that seemed to echo closer and closer, their skepticism began to waver. The janitor, who had worked at Westfield for over 20 years, swore that he had once seen a shadow moving down the East Wing corridor late at night, just after the footsteps ceased. He described it as a flicker in the dim light, like a figure caught in motion. But when he went to check, no one was there. Some students believed that the phantom footsteps were Mark's way of trying to make his presence known, perhaps to remind the living that he had once walked those same halls with pride. Others speculated that he might not even realize he was gone, still running his usual route from the locker rooms to the gym, trapped in a loop of his final moments. A few even suggested that the sounds were not just footsteps, but the rhythmic pattern of someone running, Mark's favorite activity, echoing into eternity. The phantom footsteps became a source of both fascination and dread among the student body. Some would gather in small groups near the East Wing corridor late in the afternoon, hoping to catch the sounds for themselves. On particularly quiet days, when the building seemed to hold its breath, the footsteps could be heard more distinctly, creating an eerie sense of being watched by someone just out of sight. Yet, despite the fear it inspired, the legend also seemed to connect the students with a past they hadn't experienced, a tragedy that had faded into the school's history, yet refused to be forgotten. The story of Mark's footsteps carried a deeper meaning for those who knew the boy during his lifetime. For them, it was not merely a ghost story, but a poignant reminder of a young life cut short, of dreams unfulfilled and promises unkept. The sounds of his footsteps were not just about haunting the living, they were about the weight of memory, the way loss can echo through time and space, finding ways to remind us of what or whom we have left behind. As time went on, the legend of the phantom footsteps evolved into an unspoken tradition. During homecoming week, when alumni returned to visit their old school, there would always be a moment of silence for Mark. In a subtle acknowledgement of his lingering presence, a single-track shoe was placed near the entrance of the East Wing corridor, a tribute to the athlete who had never been able to finish his race. Even students who had never known Mark left small tokens, a note, a bracelet, a piece of athletic tape, each one representing a shared understanding of loss and the inevitable passage of time. For the current students at Westfield, Mark's story and the haunting sound of footsteps served as a reminder to cherish the present, to value the time they had with friends, and to not take the everyday for granted. They felt that, in some way, Mark was still running beside them, urging them to live life to the fullest, as he had once tried to do. The phantom footsteps were no longer just a source of fear. They had become a symbol of endurance, of the way the human spirit can continue to move forward, even in the face of death. And so, the footsteps continue to echo through the halls of Westfield High, a sound that cannot be silenced, a reminder that even though some may leave us, their stories remain, finding ways to walk among us in the stillness of the night. Story 4: The Haunted Classroom. Lincoln High School had its share of ghost stories, but none as enduring as the tale of Room 204. Nestled in the farthest corner of the school, Room 204 was an ordinary classroom by day, hosting lessons on literature and history. But when the final bell rang and the students trickled out, the room seemed to change. The temperature would drop noticeably, as if a chill crept in through the walls, even on the warmest days. And then there was the unmistakable scent of lavender, faint but distinct, lingering in the air, reminding those who entered of times long past. The source of these mysterious occurrences was said to be the spirit of Miss Henderson, a beloved English teacher who had taught at Lincoln High for over 3 decades. Miss Henderson had been known for her passion for literature and her dedication to her students. Her lessons brought the words of Shakespeare and Dickens to life, and she had a way of making even the most reluctant students appreciate the beauty of poetry. Her classroom was always filled with the scent of lavender from the fresh flowers she kept in a vase on her desk, a fragrance that became synonymous with her presence. Tragically, Miss Henderson passed away unexpectedly one evening after suffering a heart attack in her beloved classroom. She had stayed late to grade papers, as she often did, with only the soft glow of the classroom lights illuminating the space. Her sudden death sent shockwaves through the school community, leaving a deep sense of loss that was felt by both staff and students alike. In the weeks following her passing, Room 204 was left empty, as if the administration couldn't bear to assign another teacher to what had become Miss Henderson's space. The first signs of Miss Henderson's lingering presence began to manifest not long after the classroom was put back into regular use. It started subtly. A sudden drop in temperature that would sweep through the room, chilling the students who sat at their desks. Then came the scent of lavender, so distinct that some students even looked around expecting to see fresh flowers somewhere in the room. But there were none. The vase that Miss Henderson had always kept filled was long gone. Yet the aroma persisted, as if the air itself remembered her. The most unsettling phenomenon, however, involved the blackboard. On multiple occasions, teachers and students reported hearing the faint sound of chalk against the board, as though someone was writing. Soft, steady strokes that continued even when the room was empty. When they checked, there would sometimes be faint markings, almost like words half erased or written with a hesitant hand. The messages were never complete, often just random phrases from literary works or lines from poems that Miss Henderson had loved. One such phrase, "The world is a stage," would appear and disappear over the course of several weeks, echoing one of Miss Henderson's favorite lessons on Shakespeare's As You Like It. Students who spent extra time in Room 204, whether for after-school study sessions or detention, would often feel as though they were being watched, not with malice, but with a quiet intensity, as though someone was there, observing their progress. There were accounts of students who swore they felt a comforting hand on their shoulder when they were struggling with their assignments, a presence that seemed to encourage them to keep trying. Some even reported hearing a whisper, faint and indistinct, but always in the tone of a gentle reminder to focus or keep going, as if Miss Henderson was still trying to guide them from beyond. The janitors, who were responsible for locking up the classrooms each night, had their own stories about Room 204. One janitor recalled an evening when he had come to turn off the lights, only to find that the blackboard had been freshly written on, the chalk neatly placed in the tray beneath it. The message read, "Keep your dreams alive." A a phrase that Miss Henderson had often used to inspire her students. The janitor was certain the room had been empty just minutes earlier, yet the writing had appeared without anyone else entering. Over the years, these occurrences became a part of the school's lore, with each new class of students adding their own experiences to the tale. For some, Miss Henderson's presence was unsettling, a reminder that death was closer than they cared to acknowledge. But for many others, it was comforting, as though a piece of the past lingered on, ensuring that the spirit of learning and dedication she had embodied did not fade away. Miss Henderson's ghost became a symbol of the school's history, a reminder that teaching was not merely a job, but a calling, one that could leave a mark that transcended time. Her continued presence in room 204 was not seen as a haunting in the traditional sense, but rather as an enduring connection to the love and commitment she had shown during her life. Some students, particularly those who struggled with the subject matter, claimed that they found inspiration in the odd happenings. When the lavender scent wafted through the room, they took it as a sign to pay closer attention, to immerse themselves in the literature that Miss Henderson had so deeply cherished. Teachers, too, felt her presence. New English teachers who inherited room 204 would often find themselves picking up habits they hadn't had before, leaving fresh flowers on the desk or referencing quotes from classic literature that they hadn't planned to include in their lessons. It was as if, in some subtle way, Miss Henderson was still shaping the way her beloved subject was taught, ensuring that the magic of words would continue to be passed down to new generations. The school administration, though respectful of the stories, never officially acknowledged the paranormal claims. However, they did make one notable exception. On the anniversary of Miss Henderson's passing, room 204 was always filled with lavender flowers, a quiet tribute to the teacher who had never really left. Students and staff would gather to share their own memories, stories of her kindness, and the strange occurrences that kept her legend alive. It became a day not of fear, but of remembrance and celebration of a life that had touched so many. In the end, the tale of room 204 was not just about a haunted classroom, but about the enduring impact one person can have on a place, on the lives they touch, and on the legacy they leave behind. Miss Henderson had dedicated her life to her students, and in return, they kept her memory alive. Each strange occurrence a reminder that love for one's craft and for one's students could indeed transcend the boundaries of life and death. Her ghost was not a specter to be feared, but a presence to be honored, a silent teacher who, even in death, continued to educate and inspire. Story 5: The Crying Girl. In the dimly lit halls of Crestwood Academy, a haunting sorrow lingers, resonating through the shadows like a ghostly whisper. The story of Lily, a sweet girl who once roamed the very corridors now filled with her spirit, is one of both tragedy and a call for compassion. Though her laughter and joy were silenced far too soon, the echoes of her pain continue to ripple through the academy, leaving a mark on those who hear her story. Lily was a vibrant student, full of dreams and laughter. She had a natural ability to connect with others, always the first to lend a hand or share a smile. However, like many young souls, she faced challenges. The hallways of Crestwood were not always kind, and a group of bullies targeted Lily, reveling in the power they held over her. Day after day, they taunted her, isolating her from her friends and filling her heart with sorrow. Despite her best efforts to rise above the cruelty, the weight of their words took its toll, dimming the light that had once shone so brightly within her. Tragically, one fateful afternoon, Lily couldn't bear the weight of the torment any longer. She wandered to the school's rooftop, seeking solace and an escape from her pain. The wind whipped around her as she stood on the edge, lost in her thoughts, contemplating the unthinkable. In that moment of despair, Lily slipped and fell, leaving behind not just a life cut short, but a heartbroken community filled with regret. In the wake of her passing, whispers of her spirit began to circulate among the students, intertwining her name with the very essence of the academy. The first sightings of Lily's ghost began almost immediately. Students reported hearing a soft, mournful crying echoing through the hallways late at night, a sound that sent shivers down their spines. The noise seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere all at once, making it impossible to pinpoint its source. It was as if her sorrow was not confined to a single location, but instead wove itself into the fabric of the school. The cry would rise and fall, sometimes barely audible, sometimes echoing with a haunting clarity that left listeners frozen in their tracks. One particularly chilling account came from a group of students who had stayed late to finish a project. As they worked in one of the science labs, they began to hear the soft sounds of weeping drifting through the cracks in the door. Initially, they dismissed it as their imaginations playing tricks on them, but the sobbing grew louder, unmistakably real. Curiosity and concern took over, prompting them to investigate. As they stepped into the corridor, the cries intensified, leading them toward a secluded area where the light flickered ominously. There, they caught a glimpse of a small figure, dressed in a tattered white dress, her hair obscuring her face as she knelt on the floor, crying silently. When the students approached, the figure vanished into thin air, leaving only the lingering sound of her sorrow echoing in the hallway. The air grew cold, and an oppressive silence enveloped them, weighing down on their chests. Shaken but intrigued, they shared their experience, igniting a mix of fear and empathy among their peers. Over time, more stories surfaced, each adding to the tapestry of Lily's haunting presence. Students described seeing her fleeting figure in the corner of their eyes, always just out of reach, her white dress torn and flowing like mist. The most chilling reports came from those who ventured near the rooftop, where Lily had met her tragic end. Some claimed to have heard her soft whispers in the wind, imploring them to listen, to understand the pain she had endured. Others described feeling a cold breeze sweep through them, as if Lily's spirit brushed against their skin, a reminder of her lingering sorrow. It was said that on quiet nights, when the moonlight bathed the academy in a silvery glow, the sobbing would return, echoing through the empty halls like a mournful requiem. The presence of Lily's ghost became a poignant reminder of the suffering that often goes unnoticed in schools. Her story resonated deeply with the students, prompting discussions about the importance of empathy and kindness. As the tales of Lily circulated, a wave of compassion began to wash over the academy. Students started to take notice of one another, fostering an environment where kindness thrived and bullying was challenged. They organized events aimed at promoting awareness and understanding, determined to honor Lily's memory by ensuring that no one else would feel as isolated as she once had. In a heartfelt tribute, the student body united to create a mural in her honor on the side of the main building, depicting Lily in her white dress, surrounded by flowers and butterflies. The mural served not only as a tribute to the girl they had lost, but also as a powerful reminder of the importance of kindness. Beneath the artwork, the students wrote messages of love and support, declaring their commitment to standing up against bullying and offering friendship to those who might be struggling. As the years passed, the spirit of Lily became more than just a haunting presence. She transformed into a symbol of resilience and compassion. Her story, once filled with sorrow, became a beacon of hope, encouraging students to reach out to one another and foster a supportive community. Each time the wind howled through the hallways, carrying the faint sound of weeping, it served as a reminder of their promise, a reminder that they must always strive to be kind and understanding. Though Lily's physical presence was gone, her spirit lived on, woven into the very essence of Crestwood Academy. The tales of her cries and the mysterious figure in the white dress became legendary, shared among students as a cautionary tale of the consequences of bullying and the power of compassion. Students who felt lost or overwhelmed found solace in her story, drawing strength from the idea that they were not alone. They learned to embrace vulnerability and to reach out to those who needed a helping hand, ensuring that Lily's legacy would never fade into the shadows. In the end, Lily's tragic tale became a powerful reminder that every person carries their own struggles, and that kindness can create ripples of change that last far beyond one's lifetime. The echoes of her sorrow, once a source of fear, transformed into a call for empathy, a lesson that reverberated through the halls of Crestwood Academy, fostering a legacy of love and understanding that would endure for generations to come. As we draw the curtain on our exploration of the eerie yet poignant tales from the hallowed halls of our schools, we find ourselves reflecting on the lasting impressions each story has left behind. From the devoted spirit of Principal Thompson, who continues to guide and encourage students even after death, to the haunted locker of Emily, where whispers of a missing girl linger like a chilling breeze, each narrative we've shared unveils the unique tapestry of experiences that echo through our educational institutions. The footsteps of a departed student at Westfield High remind us of the bittersweet memories that can haunt our pasts, stirring emotions of both sorrow and nostalgia. Meanwhile, the ethereal presence of Miss Henderson in classroom 204 serves as a testament to the profound love educators can impart on their students, a legacy that transcends time and space. And lastly, Lily's heartbreaking tale shines a light on the often unseen struggles that many students endure, encouraging us to foster an environment of compassion and understanding. These stories are more than just ghostly anecdotes designed to entertain or send a shiver down your spine. They invite us to engage in deeper reflection about our own school experiences. Each tale acts as a mirror, reflecting not only the realities of loss and remembrance, but also the power of connection and kindness. In our journey through these narratives, we are reminded of the friendships we forged, the challenges we overcame, and the impact our actions can have on those around us. As you walk the corridors of your own memories, consider the lessons embedded within these tales. How can we ensure that no voice goes unheard? How can we honor the spirits of those who have passed by, living our lives with intention and empathy? Each story we've shared encourages us to cultivate a culture where kindness prevails and where every student feels seen, heard, and valued. We hope these haunting narratives have sparked your curiosity and perhaps even inspired you to share your own stories, whether they are tales of friendship, loss, or the inexplicable occurrences that pepper our own school lives. If you enjoyed this journey into the mysterious and the magical, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel for more captivating content. Join us as we continue to explore the realms of the unknown, diving into more stories that blend the eerie with the enlightening. Your support not only helps us share these narratives, but also fosters a community where we can all reflect on the mysteries that weave through our lives. So, share this video with your friends and family, inviting them to uncover the chilling tales that may resonate with their own experiences. Let us embark on this quest together, illuminating the shadows and celebrating the memories that define us. We look forward to bringing you more thrilling and thought-provoking stories in the future. Thank you for joining us on this ghostly adventure.